Abhinav, it's great to see you here in Davos. As you know, we publish our Brand Finance 500 here, and you've been very kind in helping us to launch it here several years running. This year, TCS has done brilliantly in the IT services table. It's number 2, doing a very strong number 2. My first question would really be, how have you achieved it and how are you going to keep the momentum going?
Thanks, David. Great to see you back again in Davos. It's a very snowy and chilly Davos, as we can see up the hill. But I'm glad we got a hot cup of Tata Tea, so word to the sponsor, so that's great. Thanks again. I think, every year at the start of the year here in Davos, we look forward to the announcement of the Brand Finance Global 500 Brands ranking. I guess we've been working together for more than a decade now, and that's become such an important instrument in measuring the performance of our brand. Last year was great, in which we moved up to the number 2 rank in our industry in IT services. We are very glad that we retained that rank this year. I know my teams here and as well as in every corner of the world would be extremely happy to know we've retained our rank, and our brand value has gone up by about 2%, about $400 million or so. So that's good. They've done their jobs. A new year has started here in Davos. Lots going on this year, lots to do on the business side, and I know that there's a lot of work they're going to be doing in strengthening it even further in this year. Being number 2, one of my favorite campaigns of all times is the one by Avis, the car rental company, which carried out that iconic campaign of saying, "We are number 2, so we try harder." We are number 2 in the IT services industry. There's only one spot left to go, and I hope in the years to come that we can do enough to deserve that pole position in time.
Well, I'm sure you think you're number 1 in quality, even if you're number 2 in absolute size. But it's interesting to understand, where's the growth going to come from, given the challenges in the world, and is sustainability anything to do with it?
Talking about number 1, I think the attribute we prefer to be number 1 on, no matter what else is going on anywhere else, is customer satisfaction. And we're very proud of the fact that TCS over the last 10-15 years in all the surveys done ranks at the top of the industry. I feel if you do well in customer satisfaction, everything else takes care of itself. In terms of growth, there's a lot of potential for the technology industry. Of course, if you look back at the last 3 years and the pandemic, there was a lot of acceleration in terms of the adoption of digital technologies. At the same time, the technology industry played a very key role in keeping the world functioning in a remote working environment, whichever industry you're in, whether it's digital banking, it's retail and grocery delivery at home, it's everyone working from home using the remote workplaces of the future. We played a big role in that front. Now, as the world opens up after the pandemic, there is still a lot of opportunities on the plate. We just had our financial earnings last week. We're growing pretty much in every market. In our 2 largest markets, in the US and the UK, we're growing at about 15% year on year. So there is still a lot of opportunity. In many ways, the digital revolution is just starting. So we like to come here to Davos at the start of the year every year because it's a great place to meet our customers. So we meet the CEOs and chairpersons of some of our largest customers here. It's a good time to sit together, see what the sentiment is and how things are going to roll out. In Davos here, there's discussions today on climate, of course, and sustainability. That remains important. The economic scenario with a recession expected this year, but if you look at the sentiment of people we are talking to, it is pretty positive and upbeat. So we hope whatever downswing is there will be a short one. And then, of course, a lot of talk on talent and skills, which is so important. And also from a brand point of view, the technology sector is experiencing a talent shortage. So the need to strengthen our employer brands to be able to attract and retain the best talent is so important to us, David.
Well, I heard someone say earlier on that you only treasure what you measure, which I thought was rather a good line.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons we're glad that companies like yours are actually measuring the strength and performance and value of their brands. But 2 of the other things that we've measured this year, one is the sustainability performance, and Tata Group as a whole, and TCS in particular, does very well on that. But also your leadership does very well in our leadership survey. And one of the things about Davos is it's all about leadership, leading into the future. Do you put anything down to the culture of the whole Tata organization, to the way that you've managed to lead in the sector?
Yeah, I think leadership is important at all times, right? And I think as a lot of leaders from the world gather here today, there are I think 2,800 delegates here at Davos from the world of business, more than 80 heads of state, media leaders, academia leaders. we're having discussions on so many topics. And leadership is going to be key because, the world today is in a state where there are a lot of geopolitical tensions. We're looking at the economic recovery post the pandemic. In many places, that's already accelerating. There's shifts on the talent side of things. It's a very interesting situation where, the labor markets are as tight as ever. In some countries, unemployment is as low as 2%, 3%, which is historic low. At the same time, all the news in the recent weeks, we've seen the tech sector receive a little bit of weakening. Some companies have restructured and things like that. So I think a lot of leaders come here to learn from each other, to share perspectives, and the CEOs go back from Davos, back to their companies, sort of armed with a sense of the sentiment, armed with a few new insights, and I think in many ways we're going to see an interesting year roll out later. For us, the culture part which you're talking about is so important, right? I think at the Tata Group, we've taken our responsibility to society, to the environment, to marginal communities as something which is a key part of our DNA. As you know, David, and many other people know, at the Tata Group, 2/3 of the ownership of our groups is actually held by charitable trusts, and therefore all the profits which the groups make go back to society in many forms in terms of supporting sports programs, environment programs, development programs in communities which need it, and so many things. So that's always been important to us across our history, which has spanned more than 154 years. The world in many ways has gone towards that. I think stakeholder capitalism is clearly here to stay. Agency theory is dead, that business only exists for the shareholder. CEOs all recognize that they have a role to play on everything. If you look at the pandemic itself, right? Everyone had to come together to deal with the situation. Governments, of course, took a lead. There were multilateral organizations like the World Health Organization did. But end of the day, who has gotten us out of the pandemic? It's the private sector. It is the healthcare companies which went and within 6 to 7 months of the discovery of a dreaded disease were able to create multiple vaccines. And then, of course, public-private cooperation to develop those, fund those, distribute them all over the world and other things. So, yeah, I think this public-private cooperation part is definitely here to stay, and Davos as a platform is one of the best embodiments of it.
I think one of the interesting things for us actually at Brand Finance, as we've looked at your brand over the years, is Tata Group and TCS are exceptionally well known in India. Almost 100% recognized, and everyone knows what they stand for. Top quality, charitability, just wonderful brands. And in the last few years, you've actually been stretching your legs abroad. Far more people who should know about you are beginning to know about you, largely as a result of the marathons you're sponsoring and your involvement with e-racing. Can you just comment on how that's working as part of the plan?
We're a very global company, David. I mean, TCS operates in 46 countries across the world. As you said, the one market we don't need to worry about from a brand point of view too much is India, where we've been the most valuable and the strongest brand in the country. You're right, over the last decade and a half, we've really put a lot of efforts to build our brand globally. Our marketing and communications team have been working on a range of different portfolio of options to do that. We are present in all the big events in the world, whether it's Davos, it's many of the trade shows in the banking industry, telecom industry, retail, etc. We've upped our presence on social media and other channels. And of course, as you're saying, we made a big investment in terms of our sporting portfolio, particularly in running platforms and marathons. We're a very proud partner to fabulous iconic properties such as the TCS New York City Marathon. This year, we signed on as a partner to the TCS London Marathon, the first edition of which was held today. And then a few motorsports properties like the Jaguar TCS racing team, which is really blazing new trails in terms of bringing sustainability into a sport. The marathon part is so important for us for many reasons. It gets our brand out in a very big way locally in cities which are big business hubs. But much more than that, it's really helpful because a lot of our clients run these marathons, a lot of our own colleagues run these marathons, and it's inspired many of them to improve their fitness levels. One of the challenges in the technology sector is that the average software engineer, they spend 8 hours working on a laptop or on a computer, and it's really important to improve their wellness. Through these marathon sports, we've actually managed to inspire a lot of our colleagues, not just to run, but to take on sports and other things. Today in TCS, out of our 620,000 colleagues, about 200,000 active runners. It's just been phenomenal for us. There are many other things we do with these marathons. We showcase technology. All the apps of these marathons are built by us. And I think it's been really tremendous for our brand in taking them out. So David, before we go, you've been coming to Davos now for many years and launching the global 500 top brands report from Brand Finance. What's the biggest value you get from being here in Davos?
Davos is an incredible brand in its own right. And in 2019, when you invited us here to present some of our content, we were slightly skeptical because we thought it was a slightly weird place to come. But what we found was that the coverage globally for our study literally doubled. And the recognition that it was important, went through the roof. So Davos has got a life of its own, and coming here makes a tremendous difference to the number of senior people that are listening to what you do. And I'm sure you find the same with TCS. Certainly it's the case with Brand Finance, and we will definitely be coming in future.
Yeah, and I think some of the hardest working people here are journalists. There are, I think, about 1,000 journalists at Davos. And what they ensure is that what happens in Davos doesn't stay in Davos. So you're right. I think the projection of the conversation and things here going out to the rest of the world is so important. So David, it's a pleasure always to meet you and have a conversation with you. I mean, to do it in this beautiful location in Davos with the snow falling, a hot cup of Tata tea in our hands, this is just so fabulous. And congratulations again on the launch of all your research and all the good work which you're doing. It's really valuable to us. And we deeply appreciate our partnership with you.
And we look forward to coming back next year.
Fantastic. And he said snowball fight, so here you go. Poof!